Welcome everybody, I'm Santiago Kneeland and this is The Divine Within, the invisible connection with God. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the artist within. We're exploring a truth that lives quietly inside every one of us, the creative spirit. Joining me is Debra Guevara, a military veteran, chiropractor, mother, poet, songwriter, and lifelong student of the spiritual truth. After decades of devoted service, Debra discovered that a creative artist had been patiently waiting within her all along. And what began as a simple decision to follow inspiration became poetry, music, and an entirely new expression of purpose. Together we'll explore creativity as a spiritual practice, the idea that beauty itself is part of the divine design of the universe, and why the creative spark inside you may be one of the clearest ways God speaks through your life. Because perhaps we were never meant to be simply a consumer of creation, but we were meant to participate in it. So welcome, Debra. I'm excited to have you here.
Hi, I'm very excited to be here.
Right, and we're going to be talking about a lot of artistic things and what process is. So let's dive in, and let's start with this first segment, which is awakening the artist within. Well, most people don't lose their creativity, they silence it. Life gets busy, responsibilities take over, and the spark gets pushed aside. In this segment, Debra shares her journey from duty and service to creative expression, and how one simple decision to follow inspiration when it appeared changed everything. So, Debra, can you tell us a little bit of your life and what you mean about this spark that is kind of dormant inside of you, and how can you bring this spark outside?
Well, I grew up in the Ozark Mountains in Missouri, and we weren't exactly encouraged to be creative. We were more practical, down to earth type people. And then I left home and went into the military, and I started noticing that there was something inside of me that was driving me that I just wasn't addressing. It was quietly in my mind all the time. And I went from there, from the military into school, and at school I took a few classes in music, and I wrote a song. And it was exhilarating. I was like, "Wow, I didn't know I could do this." And so then I put that on the back burner for a while and went on with life, got married and had my children and became a chiropractor and worked. And then one day I decided I was going to retire.
Mm-hmm.
And when I decided I was going to retire, I decided I was going to pursue this creativeness that was inside of me that I'd been squelching for years. I'd wrote a few poems along the way and stuck them in a closet. And a friend of mine said, one day, said, "Where's all those poems you've been writing?" And I said, they're in the closet. He says, "Well, bring them out." So I brought them out and gave them to him, and he had them bound into a book for me. And that was the first time anyone had ever acknowledged my creativeness. And I was hooked. I was hooked from then on. I decided that I would keep a journal and write whatever came to mind, and then go back and look at it. And if a poem was there, then I wrote a poem. If I thought it was a song, then I made it into a song. And here a few months ago, my son told me about a AI product called Suno, where
Yeah.
you could put music to your words. And I was like, "Oh, that would be fantastic because I've got these songs laying here and I've had no way to put music to them." So I started publishing my songs on Suno.
Okay.
And from there, it's just gone to being a habit now. It's a habit to write down my poems and my songs. And if I don't do it, it drives me crazy until I do. It's like the other morning I got up at 4 a.m. because an idea was in my head that I couldn't get rid of, and I sat down and wrote a song, and by 6 a.m. I finished the song and went back to bed. So it was, it was just there, and it wasn't gonna be silenced. And I think once you unleash this creativeness within you, that happens. You find that you can't silence it. You have to fulfill it. You have to feed it. You have to let it grow. And so that's what my mission has been since I retired, is just to let this become part of me and let it become something that I do on a daily routine.
Well, that's interesting, and let's I mean, with this story, let's break it down a little bit in how your process was, and like we were saying in the intro, you know, many times it's not that we're not creative, we kind of put it aside or we leave it dormant because life happens, and life, you know, is full of chaos, full of demands, full of responsibilities, and you know sometimes creativity and that kind of creative spark and that part of life is you put it. Not that we don't maybe attend to it, but we always relegate it to last. So how important this is, and what you were saying, you know, it was always there. There was always this nudge, and like you were saying, it was throughout your life. But then suddenly you were through with all these distractions or the life itself, and now you have more time to come to it. So what was it that really got you into this habit? Because what I'm reading here is that you really started to this started to become a habit, and you know habits become you. So in a way, now like you were saying, is that every time that you have a creative spark, you have some ideas, you have to put it out and you have to take it out. So how has it been, or how do you think creativity comes through us?
Well, I started writing what I call the daily gratitude journal. I just decided that I didn't have to write anything in particular. I just needed to write what was in my mind and in my soul. So I started keeping a gratitude journal, and every day I wrote to God and told him how grateful I was for what I had and, whatever it was on that day. And I noticed that once I did this, I was a lot more relaxed during the day, and I was way more open to ideas and expressions that other people had. And I started noticing creativity all around me. And I got I got to reading, and I thought, we are creative creatures because we are the sons and daughters of God, and God is a creator. And he created us in his image, which means that inside of each one of us is a creator. We're meant to create whatever it is our talent is. And your talent can be so many things. It can be art, it can be music, it can be architecture, it can be computers, it can be anything that drives you, that lets you express yourself and feel more whole.
I love this. I love this. And like you're saying, and the creator creativity, and you know, we kind of miss that link there. You know, we have the creator, and once we start being creative and we let loose of our creativity, that means we're becoming like God. You know, we're really creating, and it's interesting because it's not limited to art, like you're saying. It's not just music. It's not just painting, because some people may not have the talents, or like me, you know, I'm still in stick figures 101, you know, because I can never draw 'em. You know, I'm still there, and I can't get through. Nowadays, you have a lot of technology that can help you, but my expression, you know, I was through music and through writing stories. And like you said, maybe architecture, maybe, you know, in the math. You know, there's people that create, you know, I'm thinking of Alan Turing, you know, he created modern computers, you know, and
Right,
that was something really creative. And that, you know, because they were fighting a war, and how that, you know, saved them, helped them, and in a way sparked the creation of all our modern world, you know. So how maybe an idea as simple as it seems, or mundane as it seems, could really be a part of this, you know, this, well, like we were saying, in partnership with God. You know, we're co-creators, and in a way, our creativity is that extension of God through us, right?
right. Yeah. I recently volunteered for the Center of Unity, and I got and asked to co-chair a website for children. And I was like, I don't know, I'm not, I don't know if I'm creative enough or something like that. I don't know anything about websites and I don't, but then they told me, don't worry about the technicalities and all that. Just help us build the product. So I said, okay, well, I can write some songs. So I sat down and wrote a couple of songs and then I said, well, I'll write a story or two. So I wrote some real short stories. And then I thought, well, I need a coloring picture with the story. So, and it just steamrolled from there. And things just kept coming up. And I noticed that if you use your creativity and you're open to it and you're quiet and you let it settle in, that it will just blossom
Yeah.
and keep coming and keep coming. And so we were able to publish the website. It's called Uncle Joshua's Workshop. We were able to publish it in like 3 or 4 months' time. So which I was really pleased with. It came out very well, and there are a lot of artistic people working on this with us. We have people who are helping make the videos and do the art, and so creativity also draws creativity. So the more creativity you have out there, the more people around you are going to see it and their creativity is going to add to your creativity and sooner or later you're going to create something that's bigger than all of you. And that's what I saw happening with the website and with just life in general. I went from a couple of pages of poems that I had jotted down to a book, and now I have probably another book laying here that I've written since that book. And
You went into
it's
music,
just
video, stories. I mean, the whole thing, right?
yeah, right. It just one just sparked the other, and it wasn't a chore at all. It became a labor of love.
That's really good, and that's I'm an artist as well, and when I started, 20 years ago, a little bit more than 20 years ago, I had a rock band, and we put out a couple of albums. But my whole story started when I was a freshman in high school, and I didn't, you're transitioning, you're becoming an adult, you're a teenager, you're going through adolescence, and I didn't have a lot of self-worth, or I didn't really have self-esteem. And I remember in my English class, Miss Locke, whom shout out to Miss Locke if she's watching this. She was a very good teacher, one of those that inspires you. And I remember we got to the a module of poetry, and we had to write poems, and we had to analyze and everything. And that was a very creative outlet for me, because in poetry you don't have to. It's not prose, it's not literal, it's not this, that, and that. You can really use imagery, you can use a lot of elements that you learn when you're creating a poem, and that really creates lets, in my case, it let all my emotions, all my feelings being poured out without really being literal, because I didn't even understand them. When you're in that age, you don't even understand what you're going through.
Yeah,
And it's just fun to put faces and imagery and all that. And she really inspired me, and she kind of told me, if you like it, if you're good at it, and you like doing this, why don't you write a journal like you did, and why don't you do that? And I still have on my journal, and I started writing, and she would help, and she didn't have to, but she would review my poetry, and she would make comments, and she would help me. And that started me in this trajectory, which eventually led to me playing an instrument, and then later composing, and then being in a band, and together coming up with masterpieces which are out there in the world, and whom anybody that goes to Spotify or anywhere is there, and it's interesting that, just to finish the story, but one thing that I really was amazed is that, you make that music, you make these creations for you, and it's, you're thinking this, you're feeling this, but you start, and it was the dawn of MySpace, and all this social media, and suddenly you start getting the kids back then giving you their feedback and telling you what this meant for them, and what what this song tells them about, and how they moved them. So, and it wasn't really nothing that you thought about. This is a story about something else,
Exactly.
but you got those matching points. You got those sensitive and those emotions, those that you really can become brothers with these kids. And that really amazed me, how my emotion really sparked their emotion, and together we were creative. And that really set us in our feelings and emotions. It's really interesting what art can do, and
Yeah.
what creative expressions can do, and as a group.
Yeah. It brings out an authenticity in the person because they're laying it all out there for you. If it isn't the story, it's the emotion. I know I tap into my emotions a lot. A lot of what I write is based on my emotions and my real deep inner feelings that you don't just talk to people about.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
when you write it in poetry or you write it in a song, you don't think about it. You're just being creative. And when someone comes to you and says, "That song really moved me," or "That poem really moved me," it's kind of like a shock, but
yeah.
then it's a good kind of shock, and there's a connection. And now you've both been authentic, and now you're meeting each other in an authentic kind of way. So, creativity expands all our knowledge of each other and helps us become closer as humans, I think.
Definitely, definitely. It kind of takes all the noise out of things, about the mundane, and it goes into the core of emotions, of feelings, and how that really can bridge, like you're saying, and create we become brothers and sisters. It's really interesting, and how when you share that emotion, and being in a concert, and you in a performance when everybody's just in tune with everything, and you feel that reaction with the artist. I mean, that is purely magical. I like, a band I like, Faithless, that says, God is a DJ, and this is my church. So it's really
Mhm.
a great feeling when you feel that harmony. And it is, church in the end is not a building. A church is a congregation. So whatever it may be, as long as you're congregating, and you're uplifting, and you're looking for truth, beauty, and goodness, I think that's creative as it is.
And as you said, it's harmony, and it's about harmony. It's about everyone flowing together in a way that helps everyone else.
Yeah,
You create a harmony, it lets the world become peaceful and harmonic.
yeah,
And the more you create, the more harmony, the more peace. And I believe that the way we're going to connect as a world is through things like music and art and
yeah.
um, stories and whatever your creative outlet is. I believe that's what's going to connect us as a people and drive us forward.
Definitely, definitely. I think that's a common ground that takes out religion, takes out language, cultural barriers. I mean, it makes it really in the essence of that raw emotion and feeling. So yeah, I totally agree with you, Deborah. So we're going to be closing off this segment, which is just the introduction in who we are as an artist. Then let's talk about what the universe does about uh, art. So stick around, and we're gonna talk about this. What if creativity isn't just a human trait? What if beauty, harmony, music, and artistry are woven into the very fabric of creation itself? In this segment, we're going to talk about how the universe takes art seriously. What if creativity isn't just a human trait? What if beauty, harmony, music, and artistry are woven into the very fabric of creation itself? In this segment, we explore the fascinating idea that the universe has its own artist, and why creativity may be far more sacred and far more important than most of us realize. So, Deborah, and this is interesting because, as we try to understand the universe, we try to understand how God and divinity function, we start to find that art is an integral piece of creation. It's not just a fluke that suddenly appeared over here in this earth, but that the universe is constructed around art, around truth, beauty, and goodness, and that there's even beings called celestial artisans that are helping us in this endeavor. So, what can you tell us about this universal cooperation, let's say, in the arts?
Well, I believe that universally we connect almost like a circuit for beauty and harmony, and it's all the creative powers of all the beings everywhere in the universe and all the celestial artisans who are like music and architecture and play acting and several others. They teach us as we travel through this world of ours that harmony amongst each other is a beauty, and beauty leads to creativity, and creativity just expands and expands and expands. And I believe that in our universe, we're working toward a paradigm of beauty, truth, and goodness. We're working toward this time when we will all be at peace and on the same page and loving each other and creative in everything that we do. And it's a common thread. It's the thread that holds the universe together. And it is spread. I mean, it comes down from God to the celestials, to us, his created beings on the planets. And when we use it, then it goes back up and combines with the harmony of the rest of the universe and turns it into a place of peace and love.
Definitely, and I think like you're saying, this isn't that we suddenly appear to be artistic or creative in this planet, but it does have a source in God. And it comes down, I mean, if God is everything and God is love, what, creative expression, that is the universe is beyond that. Nothing, everything is within creation, everything is within the universe. And how these creative energies, that emanate from the first source and center, are like you're saying, echelon down throughout the divine creatures and up to us who are mortals, but that who do have that creative expression. And it's interesting, the other day I was watching a documentary and they were explaining about music and how we are the only animal that can really understand music, the beats, the way that everything, the structure of a harmony, of a melody, and they did this with apes. I mean, apes can take rhythm and everything. But once we start to move into the more complex structures of harmony and melody, that is something that transcends just the material, the animal part of who we are. And it extends into the spiritual world. So how important that is, to have that spiritual influence. And we were saying, that just invades us. And we were pointing this out in the last segment, how maybe creativity is not that you don't have it, it's just lays dormant. But once you start flexing those muscles, once you start getting that going, how creativity invades you and it's just overwhelming, where you just get to a point where you wake up at 4 in the morning and have to write something because the creative impulse is right there, how that energy is there and you just have to tap on it, right?
Right. Yes, I totally agree with that. Once you've tapped into it, it's really hard to squelching it. I believe is what makes a lot of people very unhappy, is that they are not expressing themselves creatively, and they're living in a mundane world that really looks to them like it has nothing to offer.
A number.
because your
Yeah.
creativeness is what your connection to spirituality. It leads you to spirituality, and your spirituality connects you to the whole universe and God, and so expands who you are and your purpose and meaning of life. And so it's really a thread that it it's like in the movie where they hold up the lighted golden thread and they cut it and somebody screams somewhere, and yeah, it's like they've cut your life source off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really important. I mean, what you're saying, and I agree completely with you, and especially the modern world is just really overwhelming and overpowering. We become consumers and, we're just a number to make a quota in a company. And suddenly we lose that creative part, we're just inundated by all these different inputs. But how important that is. And I totally agree with you. If you do not uh, uh, allow that creative spark to express itself, and let's remind everybody, we're not talking about just painting and doing music, and it's just a creative personality, the creative spark, which can be in the more let's say in the arts, but it also can be in the maths. It also can be uh, in serving. The more I see that, there's even people that do mundane stuff, but the ones that really enjoy it, that are, even cleaning a bathroom, picking up trash. If you hate that, if you think that you are not contributing, if you're not, but suddenly if you're doing mundane tasks, but you're really, being in the moment and expressing and really serving, like that's what I'm saying, in that creative service, and you understand that you're serving people by, leaving this clean, and you take the example of the Japanese fans in the World Cup and anything, that they take great pride in leaving the space cleaned up and, have the stadium after themselves. That is really a creative expression, and that's beauty. When you leave everything just destroyed, that's not beauty. You're turning something in that's not beautiful into something beautiful. So how important it is to always have that creative dynamic in your life, right?
Right. And we see it because, like you were saying about the lower animals, they don't progress beyond a certain point because they do not have that creative drive. They haven't connected in the universe. They haven't connected to that creative drive. And I believe once you've connected to that creative drive, you move on and evolve and become a creature that can express creativity. So, it is something that is uniquely human or uniquely a being that's worthy of spiritual ascendance is going to have an advantage over some animal that doesn't. And they don't, we that's why it's so important that we try our hardest to recognize and accept the creativeness in us. Like you would say, a janitor can just mop, or a janitor can really clean and finish and put a shine on the floor and walk away proud of what they did, or they can just push the
Yeah.
mop around and keep going.
Just and leave half done, and it's really interesting. I'm gonna, maybe this is a commercial, but I'm gonna point this out. But it's funny, but what I've seen in my threads, in my social media threads, is that a lot of the Europeans that are visiting the U.S. because of the World Cup, one of the attractions they want to see is Buc-ee's, because they've heard that the bathroom is so clean that it's, the world famous bathroom that is clean. So they go to Buc-ee's to see how clean the
Oh
bathrooms
no.
are, and that's exactly what we're saying. People coming from all over the world just to
Yeah.
admire the cleanliness of a bathroom. So just even the mundane things can be creative and can be full of art. In the end.
And there's satisfaction in that.
Of
The
course.
janitors that are cleaning that bathroom have to be satisfied with their work. They have to be fulfilled by the reaction they're getting from all these people. And you can't say anymore that I'm just a janitor and I don't, mean anything. Because you did. You had some kind of meaning to those people that they traveled all that way to go see your work.
Exactly.
It's your work of art now, So
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
it has become a work of art and it has impressed people. So even the most mundane job or work in the world can count if you put your creativity into
Yeah.
it and make it your best.
Definitely, definitely. I
Yeah.
totally agree with you. I mean, you're still gonna do. Life is gonna happen. Things are gonna happen. But if you become creative, and it also means, in a way, be creative with your life. Do not view yourself as just a number. Just going from home to work and work to home, but create a story. Live your life as a hero. Envision that, have meaning. I think that's really important, that we kind of as well could kind of lose ourselves in the mundane and the trivial, that we forget that we are our own hero, that we are living a quest, that we are going through life, with challenges, with pains, and with happiness. And if we can't see that as a story, and we cannot view ourselves as the hero in our story, then our lives become dull. I think that's really important, to see ourselves as that creative hero that we are. Because we all are.
Yeah. Each and every one of us has something, E- even if it's a paint by number or a coloring book or, I mean, if you're expressing yourself and you're releasing all that energy that you have pent up inside of you that drives you all the time and you relax and you just become part of the whole universe. You just
Yeah, you're
in
part
that
of that.
time that you're doing it and you're creating, you're connected spiritually to everything else in the universe.
Definitely. You're communicating through those creative channels, which brings a concept that before we close the segment, because we're almost there. But I don't know if you want to talk about celestial artisans, which is pointed out in the Urantia book, and which is very interesting, and how they influence us in our work, in the everyday activities.
Well, the celestial artisans choose, they aid people when they see people who are using their creativity, who have a special talent. They aid that talent. They help them build it and what's the word? Blossom like a plant. You know,
They foster
they
it.
yeah, and the celestial guardians will take a special interest in that person to help with that. And the when you move from this world to the next, you can choose to be a celestial artisan. You can choose that, and they will prime you and work you and stretch your imagination and make you even more expressive than you are now in ways that we don't even know. But it all has to do with harmony and creativity. Uh, it could be music. It could be, like I said, architecture. It could be
Any of the arts. Yeah,
humor. It can be just about anything. And they groom you. That's the word I'm looking for.
true. Yeah.
They groom you to present even more than what you think you're capable of, because we have this great, and I'm a true believer that every person has a talent
Yeah.
somewhere hidden inside of them. Everyone has a talent. That's why I'm saying that everyone is creative, because there's something that you do better than everyone else. You just haven't recognized it. but everybody has this, and your special artisans are the ones who help you recognize that and bring it and grow it and nurture it into something more.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're
Well,
amazing. And they say we can't understand them because we can't understand the beauty and the harmony that exists in the universe through our little planet here.
through our
There's a
simple
thread of
senses,
connection.
we need like the full, an extra set of senses that we do not understand yet because we're in the material world and we only know five. But we experience art and all this through many other senses, and in totality. So it's really interesting how even there's beings that are assigned to foster that creativity and how that creativity moves the world. If it wasn't for creative ideas, we'd still be stuck in the Stone Age, right?
Right, right. I mean, that one person that picked up that stick and that stone and lashed them together and had a hammer, there
Exactly.
you are. He's created a hammer, and then we gone from there. And
And how simple that is, but how life changing and world creating that is. Just a simple hammer just changed
yeah,
everything.
a
Awesome.
simple little idea, one little thing that you don't think is important, but really interests you.
Yeah.
Maybe your one talent and your one creation that could turn us from, like Turin, from a manual analog world into a computerized
Digital
world,
world. Yeah. Yeah. It's
a
so
different
amazing.
world totally from what we had before. One
Yeah.
idea, one person.
And it's interesting that in that sense, they were trying to win a war, and sometimes I mean, not sometimes, we always, wars are not good and they bring a lot of suffering. But, how they also creates our creative spark, that also fosters a creative spark and this creativity to overcome the enemy and just really change our world. So, never, and the point about saying that is that do not take a difficult situation without don't live it without learning the lesson. I mean, if you're living that difficult situation,
Yeah,
transcend
yeah.
it, learn from it, create something from it, and that many times is it's you recreate it yourself, and many times you emerge after that situation and that ordeal as a completely transformed person. So it's really
That's
important to
right.
be creative throughout our lives and throughout our time. So we're going to leave it off here, and we're now going to talk about in the next segment how everything is mathematical and it follows a pattern. So stick around. So in this segment, we're going to talk about how some masterpieces take time, how the influence of time is very important in our existence, not only personal, but collective and throughout, and to moving us from this imperfect, this potential to these perfect and this actual of what we're doing. So the ancient Maya taught a beautiful principle. Time equals art. With patience, growth, and experience, life itself becomes a creative process. In this final segment, we explore why creativity can't be rushed, why transformation unfolds in seasons, and how each of us is slowly becoming a work of art in progress. So let me start this off because this is a topic that I talk about a lot. And we understand that the universe works through patterns, it works through sequences, and that God created this original sequence, and we come from that sequence, and we're kind of participating, and that's why we can co-create because we follow these rules. And I always point out music. Music, it has a sort of notes, and you can play them as it is, but if you do not follow certain rules, if you do not look at the harmony, see in what key it is, see and that key has the possibility for these notes to be played, and maybe there's a couple that you cannot play because it causes dissonance, and how that harmony progresses, because that's what it is, it's a progression, and how you put together that harmony and you put in rhythm, and suddenly you've created through a very specific architecture of laws, but you've created a beautiful masterpiece. When you take all that law out, it's I always said that you don't need to be a musician to enjoy music. You just need to be a human to really enjoy it. But it does work through these let's say structures of order. So I wanted to I wanted to have your take on this, and how this works, and how you express your art, and how do you come through this creative process, especially in music. How do you feel that? Because in some cases, it's not like you're going, oh, A minor goes to C, then goes to, no, no, no. You just feel the
I
notes.
don't
It
know
takes
that.
you over there. You're not thinking about the math. But can you tell us a little bit of that experience in your life?
Well, for me, yeah, music is like I have a son that's autistic, and he
Okay.
took piano. And he told us one day, he says, Mom, he says, it's not hard. It's just mathematics put to a tune. And so he could see this beat and this movement and the letters, notes going up and down the scale as a mathematical thing to him. And I thought, that's really wild because a lot of people wouldn't look at it that way. For me, music was kind of like that. It's like the song comes in my head as one thing, not as words, and then later with music. If I have a
Okay.
song, it comes with everything already there, the music, and I have to put it down as such. And
Okay.
since I don't write music and I don't play an instrument, I have to do it through my voice or
That's your
and work with
instrument.
it
Your voice is
through
your
Suno.
instrument. Yeah, yeah.
Right. So I'll hum it or sing it or do whatever. And I used to have a couple friends that would write it down for me on paper. But then I started using the Suno and messing around with the AI and getting it to do that for me till it got to the tune that I had in my head. And it takes a long time. It's a real creative process.
Yeah, yeah,
And at first I thought, well, that's cheating, but it's really not because it's yours. You tweak it and change it and tell it what you want in there, and it plays it. You don't like it, you delete it, you do it again, you change this or that, and until you come out with the song that you had in mind, that
yeah.
was in your head to begin with. And so it's a tool, and I see it only as a tool. And for me, that tool allows me to be more creative with what I have in the poetry and the words of my songs. So and it is a process, but it's I don't know. I'm a kind of an inspired type person. I get an inspiration, then I take it and go with it. And some people just write and write and write until they get the words they want, and then they write and write and write until they get the song that they want,
Hmm.
and which is a perfectly good process. That's their
Yeah.
process. Everyone has their own process. I feel inspired by something, a sentence or something someone said to me or something I read, or I just pray and feel inspired, and so then I sit down and start the process of writing through this thing, and it's like doing a math problem. When you start, you have to go all the way to the end and
Yeah.
complete it because otherwise you've got an equation that doesn't mean anything. And so it's a creative process
Oh, I agree. I agree. And I
for
lived through,
everyone.
yeah, I lived through the whole technological change from, analog classical instruments to the digital world that we have now with AI, that like you said, it's a tool. It's still a tool. Like any instrument is a tool of expressing your creative part. But now it's a more sophisticated tool that can do many other things. And that, I remember that one of the great things that we do used to say, about the beatboxes, that would do the drums, is that now you can get rid of the drummer, and there's not, just making noise in the back. You can get rid of that. But in a way, it's interesting how that process has evolved. When I started doing music, you couldn't really record anything. I mean, you played, it was live. I'm talking about the 90s. And then you would maybe get a porta studio, which you would record in a cassette, and maybe that would, you separate 8 tracks. Or then there was the ADAT, and there was still no computers. I mean, the only thing that you would have mixer, and the ADAT was just a VHS recorder. That's where it recorded the music, and you could hook up to, and instead of
Right.
having just 8 channels, you'd have 16 channels, very analog. But in the end, you could not see how nowadays you see the waveform, and you can cut it, and you can do. Then the world moved into Pro Tools and into all the digital, or the applications or software, which, and before you had still the big equipment, that had to be hooked up, and then you got started getting the plugins, and it got to a point where you only need a computer to create everything. And now you don't even need to be have to go to school to even know what the structure is. If you can feel it, with AI, and you can tell with a prompt, and you can tweak it with a prompt, then suddenly that is compressed, and it's very practical for you. So anybody that has that creative spark, they do not have to go through all that learning process. They do not have to go, and it's really hard to get a studio, and you have to pay and get all that. But now it's in the tip, and this is what I want to stress out. We live in a very modern world that everything is at the tip of your fingers, and your creative spark is so easy nowadays to be fed, that you wouldn't believe, right?
Right. And it's like you were saying, is an example of that is when Sooners started, they had a few people, and within 2 or 3 months, they had so many people they couldn't keep it online. People were shutting them down. There were so many people online at one time, and it was just this example to show you that once people found that instrument that allowed them to release their creativity, they uh they just went with it. And
Yeah.
it's just people from all over the world are just creating music constantly all day long, all night long. And it's formed a whole community of people that are working together now, and they're publishing their music on different platforms that would have never let them you would have never had access to
Yeah.
before this, because you had to go through the record companies, or people like that, in order to get access to the publishing side of it. And
Yeah.
now you can just publish your song, and
Yeah.
it goes straight to wherever it is. So, and it opens up avenues. And so it's like anything, math and science and the arts, they open up the avenue to creativity. All these people working in these uh fields are extremely creative. Some people don't think of an astrophysicist as being a creative person, but he takes what he finds and he creates a theory, and then he goes and proves that theory. And that is extremely creative.
Oh, but yes,
And that's
definitely.
something I could never do.
Me
It
either.
makes music look easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so like I'm saying, everybody can express their creativity and their talent and their knowledge and stuff if they really take the time to look inside themselves and figure out what it is that makes them happy. And that's what it really comes down to.
Yeah.
Creativity makes you happy. It fulfills that need inside of you to be to leave something behind, or
Yeah.
to be known in the world as, this is who I am. This is what I do. This is what I have.
Like you were saying a bit earlier, it gets your authenticity out there. You're authentic, and it's the greatest expression of who that personality is, and it's interesting because it also involves vulnerability. You when you create art, and I remember when I started doing poetry, I kind of was shy at the beginning. What are they gonna think? But suddenly, if you're genuine, if you're putting your heart in there, if you're really expressing, that really touches, it dispels all the barriers and it touches you in an emotional and your feelings. So that's really important to recognize that as well.
There are authors that have been asked and artists that have been asked, who did you paint this for or who did you write this for? And they will tell you, I did all this for myself. I did this to I painted this picture because it's what I saw in my head. It's what I needed to create. And I wasn't worried about how you interpreted it or they interpreted it, whether they
Yeah.
liked it or
Yeah,
they didn't
exactly.
like it. And that's what's the main step of being creative. You've got to get away from what other people think because your creativity will stand for itself and you will be
Definitely.
so surprised that what people will say, well, I could never have done that. You're so creative. But, and I always answer that with, you could do that when you find what you're creative at.
Definitely, definitely, and I think it's a whole process of discovery, of refinement, of practice, of habit. And then you start living your life in art. That's why I like this concept. And let me go into what I commented or I said in the introduction. The concept of time equals art. And their concept or the Mayan concept of time is that it's not linear. You're not starting like in this and you're going forward in time. It's all radial and it's like a spiral that time is compacting and then you jump from one leap, you do like a quantum leap of one sequence to the next sequence. So I really like this because in a way, since we're radio, we're repeating. That's why sometimes it's like, oh, this is happening again. Or why am I always, if you don't learn the lesson, the universe is going to bring it as long, as many times as needed for you to learn it. And this is the concept that you're in this. So let's say that you're in this loop and you do not learn and you don't know, you don't move forward in this spiral, you're gonna stay stuck in there. But it's the same thing in how, like I always say, if you understand one system, one mechanism, and everything is relatable, then you can understand the other. So if we understand art and how it works and how it's a process and how it's not just coming up, oh, here's the song, but it is a creative process. It is putting yourself out there. If we compare that to life, it is also our life has become more artful, and that's why we have to live it. Because some people, they come to the end of their life and they maybe haven't really realized anything or they haven't really felt fulfilled in any ways. But if we live, and that's why I always say carpe diem when I close the show, because if you live every day, doesn't mean that you have to, work your butt off. It also means that you can rest and you can really take in creation, but it's really making each day count, making each step a step forward in this time equals art concept, and you becoming art and you becoming this perfected being that you will become, and that falls into what the concept of the supreme is in the Urantia book. We're all part of this. God has different attributes, and one of them or qualities, and one of them is that we are all part of God and we are all evolving as a being into this perfection and into being this God the Supreme, right?
Right. What I've found too is that there's one thing that's extremely important, and that's rest. And I don't mean sleep, I mean rest. I mean taking a day off. Jesus took a day off with his apostles every week.
Yeah,
They played, they went and visited their family, they went and fished, they did whatever was it, but it wasn't what they were working on. It
yeah,
was other things. They got away from it for a little while. And I think what people leave off and don't find their creativity is the fact that they never take enough time to rest,
yeah,
to really find out what it is that drives them, because all this came up in my leisure time. It didn't come up when I was working because I had to put it on the back burner. I'm working.
yeah.
I have to do this or that. And when I learned to be quiet and when I learned how to really absorb the universe around me is when I found my creativity. So it's very important for people to rest.
Yeah. And we take it for granted, but it is very important because that really gets your mind off, just the loop that you're in, and that really opens up and even gives you more ideas. It's always when I come back to work after vacation that I have the best ideas or that I have the more creative ideas because I just stepped out of that, that loop or that rut and saw it in a different perspective and more creative perspective now that I'm rested and then my head is not in the in that loop, not to be
Right.
redundant. So it's really important. I totally agree with you, Deborah.
It's really exciting to
Yeah,
know that people can be creative, and it's real exciting to know that I'm creative and that you're creative and that the world together can create something even bigger than ourselves.
yeah. Creation itself, that's what it is. Well, it's been really a good conversation, and time has flown. When you're being creative and talking about beautiful art, truth, beauty, and goodness, and all these things, it just flies away. So, any closing remarks you want to include before we close, Deborah?
No, I think if you would allow me, I would like to read one of my poems.
Yes, please. And by the way, we're gonna put some of your music later. You're gonna be hearing
Oh,
it
okay.
throughout, and we're gonna edit that. But yes,
Okay. This one I call Let Go, Let God. It says, I find it impossible to let go, let God. I cling to my fears and insecurities, counting my failures, trying to balance heaven on a scale of deeds. I search for ways to add up points to reach heaven. If I do this, if I do that, they'll surely be worthy at last. Yet deep inside, I already know God forgave my indiscretions before I ever asked. His mercy was written over my name long before I tried to earn it. His mercy is the only pass I need, the only door, the only way. And still I stand outside, hands gripping chains that are already unlocked. The only obstacle in my path is me. I am the one blocking the way, not his judgment, not his silence, only my refusal to receive. Open my heart to the truth. Give me courage. Give me strength to recognize and accept His love. For His love is the only key I need to enter the kingdom I seek. And the gate was never locked, only my fear was. So teach me to loosen my grip. Teach me to trust what is already given, to let go and let God.
love it, love it. Let go and let God, as always. Well, thanks for that, Deborah. I think it was a nice way to close this podcast. So thank you for coming. It's been a pleasure. Um, And thank all of you for watching. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Although we have the podcast basically all week long, we have new episodes. But be sure to put the reminder button. And if you hear something or you like what we're saying, tell people that we are having these conversations so that they may also find truth, beauty, and goodness in what we bring. So until next time, I'm Santiago Kneeland. This is the Divine Within. Take care and carpe diem. On the Divine Within podcast, we'll share real conversations to help you find a personal connection with God. My goal is to support your faith, growth, and journey toward discovering the divine within yourself. Join us to deepen your faith and spiritual journey.